All right, here's what we have going today. Finishing AC3, hopefully can finish that. And AC3 is all about database maintenance. Can you name some of the things we do when we're maintaining a database? The first thing we do, you better have this on the top of your list. Most important thing, what's the most important thing to do with databases? You should be doing it with your files.
Backup.
Backup, that's right. Anytime you do anything to anything important, anything that's important on your PC, remember, like Esther realized that disk may die anytime on the PC you're working at. Have backups of your files. Database, they are especially critical data. The whole reason you put it in a database and spend all that time working with that little more complicated program is because your data is precious. And before you make a change to anything, even if you're not making changes, you still want backups, regular backups. So even if you're not the database expert, ask the IT guy or gal, hey, how's that? How often do you do those backups? You know, pose it as just an innocent question. Or, hey, do you store those backups off-site? Because this building could burn down or get flooded, or someone comes in and blasts the computer or steals the computer. What if that happened? Are our backups? If you're dealing with management, they are ultimately responsible to have checked on that. So if that becomes your job, even though you're not the tech person, it's your responsibility to confirm, yes, we have backups. Other things you do with the database is you update the structure. Like today, in our database, we added some fields, giving it a little more flexibility. Something that is not often done with databases because storage is so cheap, we remove old data. Most people don't worry about this step because we have huge disks, but some systems must do this, especially when they're collecting lots of data. You've got to remove old data, and that's a hard thing. You've seen some people that are like pack rats in their garages, piles of stuff in their garage. Don't come to my house. And especially with data on our computer, we do not want to remove it because it may have some historical value. Maybe one day I want to search for who's been using this particular part all the way back to the beginning of the time of the database. Well, if you've been doing backups properly, you can go to there when you need to. We call those archives. Backup for, hey, in case something goes wrong, but archives are there in case I really do need to do that historical study. I can remove old data in the database being mainly used for my company. So let's go on to the project for the AC3 here, which is to make some structure modifications to our database. So I'll bring our page over here and enlarge it a little bit for you. What we're doing in our database is adding another field. We've already added this field of customer type, which could be HS, COM, or UNI. They want us to add another customer type, or resources needed field. So let's go ahead and add a resources needed field. And I'm going to do it a little bit different than the book, so watch carefully. I'm going to bring up access here. And first of all, I'm going to go to I'm going to close everything. And I'm going to first go to my customer table, right-click on my customer table, and go to Design View. And I have already added the resources needed. I'm going to delete that and add it again so you can see exactly how I've done. So I can delete a row. Now, we've done customer type, which is a lookup field. We're going to click on Amount Paid and right-click Insert Rows. Insert Rows always inserts above where I am. And I'm going to call this Resources Needed. Right-click Design on the table. Another way to get to design is you can click on the table and then the home tab, oh, and then view, design view. But it's easier just to right click on that. Okay, and once I'm in design view, I add a field called resources needed, and I change the type from short text to lookup wizard. Lookup wizard. And we are going to type in the values that we want. Now, in the book, they give us a table with a resource abbreviation and the description. That description, I think, is useful to us. In the book, they throw away the description. But we're going to keep that description in there because it is helpful information. And here's what we do. Instead of just having one column there, click 2 for the number of columns. And then, as we add our resource abbreviation, we're also going to type in the description. So audio and audio CD. All right, so I'm going to, let's see, can I shrink this down? I'm going to go back here and shrink this down so I can see my selections as I enter them. And now I'm going to come back to here and go down to, come on, there we go. I'm going to go back to my resources needed. 2 columns. And now I can see them up there. Audio, spelling it right. Oops, back. Audio CD, CD-DVD, culture DVD. And it's basically entering that entire table in my lookup wizard. And I can enlarge columns there. So it's like I'm entering data in a little table. And actually what is happening, we are actually building a little table as we're doing this. So putting the abbreviation as well as a description. Trying to make it friendly as possible for the person entering data. Now, what's the purpose of having a lookup field?
Another thing you can search. So when you want to search a specific type of.
Yeah.
Or so when people are using it, they can like choose.
Right.
What type of field they want to use.
So rather than expecting them to spell it just right, it's giving them the choice from a list, reminding, first it should be helping them, reminding them what resources are they can choose, but also keeping them from actually typing the wrong thing and giving us corrupt data, an invalid resource type. So allowing things to be typed, limiting it to a list, is controlling the input. And as much as people hate control, we do need control on entering data because we must keep our data pure, because our data is precious. I'm going to adjust this column because actually how wide the columns are affects how it's viewed when I'm actually entering data. So I'm going to make sure this column is not too wide, just wide enough to hold all those abbreviations. And the second column just wide enough to hold my second column. And then I click Next. We do want to allow them to limited list. Now since we have 2 fields that we've added, we're going to choose column 1 as the one that goes in once we actually do select things. We are going to click Allow Multiple Values. and the name of the field is going to still be called resources needed. But this time, we didn't do this before to allow multiple values. Last time, it was a single value, not limited to the list. They could type something in as well, have the reminder of the customer type. Okay, once you get to there, remember I can always go back. Once I leave a wizard, I have to deal with what it gives me. But while I'm inside the wizard of any type, I can still change things. Once I hit finish, then I'm stuck with what the wizard's given me. If I want to redo it, I have to figure out what it did for me. So we're ready to hit finish. Got your data in there. Once I hit finish, now I can view the table. Let's see what that looks like in datasheet view. So bop back to datasheet view, saving changes. And now I see in datasheet view I have this extra entry. Let's see how it behaves. Clicking on resources needed, I see my description shows up as well as those little abbreviations. And this allows the customer or the data entry person to choose multiple things. And clicking OK, I can see what was chosen. I can enlarge that field and I'll get a list, comma-separated list of what was chosen. So just play with that a little bit. I don't think they have us enter specific data for things. Just experiment with it. See how that appears now that it's a lookup wizard. I think we're gonna write a query that actually sets them all to a specific value. Okay, so it should appear like this then, if you've done it right. I have the abbreviation showing up along with that second column showing the description. Once I select that, then it'll show up just the abbreviation. All right, let's see what's going on here. All right, go back to design view. Go to lookup wizard for resources needed. Or let's do cancel that. Let's go back and let's see if we can fix it without restarting the folder. Go down to lookup at the bottom. See way down the bottom, lookup tab. Row source. Go ahead and click on that row source. One below that. Yeah, click on that. Does it let you edit that? Right click on that maybe. Looks like it's down column, limit to list. Oh, change limit to list to be yes. Down below. Right there, change that to a yes. And also change the allow multiple view values to be yes. And now go back to the datasheet view. Now go to resources needed of any of the customers.
No, don't click that one, click one of the boxes. There you go. And then you get down arrow.
Down arrow. Okay, now select it view, just see how it shows up. You having the same trouble? Okay, go down below and change allow multiple values to be yes. And also change limit to list to be yes.
I don't know. Sure.
Okay. And then go back to datasheet view and datasheet view. Just click on the box up above, upper left, keep going. Where it says view up, just click there. That takes you to datasheet views. And now enter some resources. There you go. You got the nice list showing up. Okay. So we've made made a slight modification, making this a little bit more user-friendly. One thing to remember, though, since we've made a modification to our table, if we had a form for the table before, it's not going to show that new field because it created the form before it had that field. So if we want to use the form, we have to go recreate it. But let's go see what the book wants us to do next after we've done this. So we've added another field. They also want to add another field called total amount, which is going to be calculated anytime they enter amount paid or current due or change amount paid or current due. Total amount will automatically have the correct value in it. So we're going to add a field called total amount and make it a calculated field. And let's go ahead and do that. It's going to be amount paid plus current due. So back to design view. Just clicking on the triangle, I don't have to go to the pull down list. I can just click on the triangle to take me to design view. And right after current due, click on returns. We're going to add a field there, insert a row, and we're going to call this, okay, I forgot what it's called. We're calling it total amount paid, right? Yeah, total amount. We're calling it total amount, and we're going to make it a calculated field. Okay, so total amount is the name. And instead of the default short text, we're going to click and go down to calculated field. Kind of, just exploring the different types of fields available to us here. And in here, this is where we're going to type amount paid plus current due. You better get this spelled exactly right or it's not going to work. So they give you a reminder, plus in brackets, square brackets, current, and it shows you a suggestion. Hit tab once the right one shows up and it'll fill it in for you. So that's going to be in square brackets, amount paid plus current due. And then click OK. And I don't think we need to do anything else. Let's go to datasheet view and see amount paid field should show up, automatically getting calculated as we go. So again, that was a calculated field containing square brackets amount paid plus current due. Everyone got that to work? That's a quick little one, a calculated field. Just a handy way of letting it calculate for us as we go. Since it's an important number we want to see in the data, we let it calculate for us. I myself don't really like calculated fields because it's one more thing that could go wrong. I'd rather calculate it when I need it. Maybe I don't need to see that all the time. Okay. Now, suppose we need to assign everyone a particular kind of customer, UNI. Rather than going back through and one by one typing UNI or selecting UNI in the field, we want to update all the customer types to UNI. Watch how easy it is to run a very dangerous query. This is called an update query. I'm going to go ahead and close the customer table, saving any changes because I adjusted a column. And we're going to create a query. First, we're going to make it a select query on the customer table. And all we care about is customer type. And run it as a select query. It shows me all my customer types. Many of them are left blank. And then go back to design view. Now change this to an update query. This is where it gets dangerous. I can do an update to UNI. Okay, so what this means is when I run this, it's going to, instead of just showing what's there, it's going to set every customer type. Since I have no criteria, it's going to do it for all customers. It's going to just blast through and update every customer type to UNI. And I got to make sure I'm doing this exactly what they want, because there is no going back unless I have a backup of this.
You put UNI in stars, right?
Nope. Nope. Because I'm updating. I'm not selecting. I'm changing all the customer types to UNI. Question?
How do you get to the customer table with
Oh, right-click Show Table, and then choose the customer table, and then close.
Customer table, but yeah, once we get there,
Then just close that, and then double-click customer type, so it shows up down below.
oh, I do. Never mind.
Did you get this?
We did that Monday.
Okay.
Do you run yours? Yeah.
All right, let's go add customer type. Okay, go to close this query, and go back to the table. Right-click Design, and right above Resources Needed, click on Resources Needed. Right-click Insert Field, Insert Row, and then Customer Type. And it's a lookup field.
Oh, okay.
Type in the values I want, and put COM, UNI. What were the three types of customers? COM, UNI, and HS. COM, UNI, and HS. And then X and finish. Okay, now go ahead and close the table, saving changes. And go back to create query design, customer, and double click customer type. And change it to an update query, a dangerous, dangerous update query.
Is it quotations or asterisks around you and I?
That's quotations. It puts them there for me once I just type UNI.
Really? Because it wasn't working for me when I typed in. Oh, there we go. Never mind.
Now, when I run it, it's going to warn me you are changing the data on every row. And this is another reason why backups are needed. Someone may accidentally run a query that changes all the data by accident. This did happen to me once on a database with, I think, about 30,000 rows. I was doing a fairly complex auction database. And fortunately, I did have a backup, but that was a real pain. So when I tried my code again, I always made sure I had a backup, and then I checked, because changing the data back can take more time. So this is not undoable. I click yes, and if I go back to my table now, I see that all the customers are now UNI. It's wiped out whatever choices I had put there before. So change or update queries are very dangerous.
When I got mine, it was just a bunch of blank ones with a comma at the top.
Did you run the update query? Did you make it an update query?
Yeah.
Mine says that if I update or delete query
I
Go to design of the update query. Update to UNI, customer type. And did you run it? You're about to change 16 rows. Now go back and look at your table. Yep.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't run out. Maybe
Right.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to. I just switched that.
Go back to design view.
Yeah, that's right. I need to put that in.
Did you run the query?
Yeah, you just did.
Okay. Yeah.
Alright, cool. Okay.
Yeah, you changed 16 rows.
Yes. Then click on- double click on it.
What you have to do, you have to go actually look inside your table to see that the changes were made. So go back and look at the customer table. And now you see this change. Now go to the customer table. Open the customer table. There we go. And we see it there as well. Okay? So this one, we do want to save this. So I'm going to save this as, and I'm going to call it, what page are we on here? We're on page AC161. Call it AC161, update to UNI customer type. And I click OK, and I close it. Now, this is a very dangerous query, and it shows a different icon there. Remember, if ever I double click on this, it's going to run it again, and if I made changes, it's going to change all my customer types back to UNI. So that's why I call them dangerous. Now, since we're in AC3, I can get rid of all the AC2 queries just because they're all sitting around cluttering up my database. I'm going to click on that one. Let's see, can I delete them altogether and shift click? Let's see if it lets me shift click and get rid of all those extra queries. Oh, it looks like I have to, oh, yes it will. Let's see if I hit delete. Yes, it's deleting my queries that I didn't need from the previous assignment. And another reason, to have a backup in case I delete queries I meant to keep around, I can go back.
Should we delete the forms too?
Since there are not too many, you could delete them since they are part of the AC2. And that's another part of database, keeping things clean, getting rid of old queries and old data. So that was a update query, very powerful, especially when you have lots of information. Can be very dangerous because you're making lots of changes too. And some databases actually can be, you can change it so it doesn't even give you the warning. It just runs and doesn't stop and say, are you sure about this? Because when you're running a lot of queries, you don't want it to stop every time. There's other queries that can be made, such as appending data to a table or actually creating another table. But we're going to skip that part. We want to make sure that our street field has a length of 25 rather than 20. So going back to our customer table, right-click Design. In my street field, I see there in my field size property, it's 20. Change that to 25. So Design View, click on the field I'm going to change, and all these properties we can change. Field size is the only one we're changing for street. I could have also done this in Datasheet View. Remember when we first started creating the tables? When I click on a column, in the design part of it, it shows field size there. I could have done it there too, but I like Design View better. There's lots more power in the Design View. So street, change field size to 25. And they do want to make sure that no one leaves the customer name field blank. Going to make that required. So click on customer name and turn required from no to yes. You can just double click and it toggles to yes. Double clicking toggles it back to no. Make required to be yes for customer name. So if anyone accidentally tries to enter a customer, forgets to enter customer name, it will say, sorry, you must enter something in that column. All right, so that's requiring a field. We're doing a couple more property changes. We're specifying a range in the returns field. So we're playing with a little more of the details of the properties. In the returns field, we're going to add a validation rule and validation text. So click on returns here, and then down here, the validation rule by default is blank. But we want to require that it has to be greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 30,000. So the way we do that is type that same thing in there. Greater than equal to 0 and type the word and less than 30,000. Let me put that in the little note here. So we're putting in there greater than or equal to 0 and less than 30,000. That's the validation rule. Now without the validation text, I get a very, very unfriendly message from Access. The data entered does not meet the field validation rule. Very confusing and intimidating message. We're putting in a better message in the text of saying, please enter a positive number less than 30,000. We're making a much friendlier message to come up when they don't meet the criteria greater than 0, less than 30,000. So I will put that text in there. And now watch how it behaves. I go to Datasheet View, saving my changes. Since I've changed the validation rule, it's going to warn me the data may not satisfy the rule. Let's see what happens. Oh, it didn't complain. Now let's try to enter a number underneath returns. Let's change something. Here's a 0 number. Let's try to change that to a -1. Oh, there's my validation text. Sorry, please enter a positive number less than 30,000. Sadly, it doesn't take me back to the previous value. I can Control Z to get to back to the previous value I entered. Let's try 50,000. Same message, positive number less than 30,000. And Control Z takes me back to the previous value. So that's what the effect of putting a validation rule and validation text is in there. So again, all we did was add a validation rule and then the text down in any, and we could do that for any field. Let's see if they want to do it for any other fields. In customer type, it looks like they want us to, whenever we're starting a new customer, have the default value be UNI. So let's go to there, customer type, there it is, and in the default value, equal UNI. And I think we put it in quotes, if I recall. Yeah, no, they don't put it in quotes. Okay, I won't put it in quotes if I don't need to. Let's see if it works. Here's the effect of that. If you look down here on the, whenever I'm entering new records at the bottom, see how now it has UNI automatically there by default? So databases that we have around here that dealing with like our Awana clubbers, I'll have the default city be Dubuque, so we don't not constantly filling in city. And I'll have default state be Iowa. It makes it a little easier for the data entry person to not have to type in something that's there 99% of the time. So this is making data entry easier for using default values. Now, to have a requirement on the customer type, we're going to require it either be HS or COM or UNI. So I put that in as my rule for my customer type. And I'll put that in big letters so you can see what was there. Customer type is going to be equal HS or equal COM or equal UNI. And the validation text is going to ask them, going to remind them what they need to spell. And let me put that. Then the validation text would be, for this one, would be, again, a please enter one of HS, UNI, or COM. That would be my nice, friendly validation text. Before I put the validation text in there, let me show you how it shows up without validation text. If I try to enter something invalid in the customer type, let's change it to ABC. Oh, it didn't complain. Oh, because I hadn't saved that change. Let's go back and save that change to my customer table. Customer type. Add that to my validation rule. Equal HS or equal COM or equal UNI. Remember I had entered ABC on one? It warned me that, hey, that ABC doesn't qualify. Let's try entering DEF and see the message I get. Without the validation rule, I get this very unfriendly message. One or more values are prohibited by the validation rule set for customer type. That is very intimidating to your average user. So that's why we put the validation text. So back to design view, make it friendlier. Oh, and now it won't let me go until I choose a valid value. Now I'll go back to design view and put in the friendlier validation text. And then let's see what else they want us to do. Oh, in the formatting, we're specifying a particular format in the customer number. In the customer number format, we're putting in, where are we putting in that format? I didn't see where what number they put in here. Format, oh, I see a greater than. What that means, it automatically makes anything they type lowercase show up as uppercase. So just a simple validation rule of the greater than symbol underneath customer number. So customer number, validation rule, right? No, sorry, the format field. Format field, greater than. None of the detail of the various properties. All of these properties can be very helpful, but they're just making you go through a few of them, showing that properties are the next detail about making sure good data is in our table. So greater than on format, and then Control S to save my changes. And now back to my data. Now if I enter, say I'm going to enter Seaborn College with lowercase cs101, and I go to the next field, it automatically uppercased my SEC. All right. So we've saved all our validation rules as we've gone along, and then they show how entering data and how all those validation rules have an effect. Changing the contents of any field, adjusting columns sizes, we've already done that. Using the lookup field, we've done that as we made our changes. Multi-valued lookup fields, I'm not going to make you make the table match all these resources, but that's just showing you all the settings you could make. And then as you view the data, you see the check marks as things have their changes made. Now remember how I said your form has to be recreated because we've made changes to our customer? This is sort of getting ready for the final here. Remember, in the final, you'll be asked to create a database from scratch. And one of the things you're going to be asked to do is create a form. Remember the 3-click method. Choose the table you want to make a form for, choose Create, and just click Form. And then you have a new table, and notice how it now shows a Resources Needed field in the form for that table. And Control S to save it. And the default name is the same as the table. Have we made any changes to the book rep table? No. But just in case you did, you can always do click the table, click Create, and click Form, and it'll create a new form for that table. If it's the same as before, you don't need to save it. So I'm going to close my form. I'm going to delete my old one. Right-click Cut. And I'm going to delete that Join Tables form because that's from the previous assignment. And the split form I don't need around either. If I do want still a book rep form, click it, Create, Form, and Save. Just so I have a form for each table. And I'm going to close the form as I go on because Access is happier when things are closed. So they discuss reports, adjusting reports, printing reports, including totals in a data sheet. Remember, that's the Totals button. let's do that just to remember. Opening up the book rep table. The totals button, is that it there? And in there I can choose what shows up in my total for numbers, or for salaries. I can choose the average, the sum, the count in the totals button. Remember, that's done by toggling on and off whether or not I'm showing totals. That's a toggle button to show or not the totals. And to remove it, I just toggle it off. Adjusting grid lines. Oh, let's try that. I can go to my table, and in the grid line part of it, let's try that here. I haven't done this recently here. So right here, I can show, oh, that's not the grid lines. Where's my grid lines? There we go. And I could alter my shading. See how it alternates your rows. And we've already changed font to enlarge it. And I think, let's see here, choosing different rows in a query, multiple values on multiple rows. I think I'm going to skip over that. Oh, here comes a very important point. I'm glad we got to here. Remember how if I don't have a book rep that exists, I can accidentally right now type in a non-existent book rep? That's a really bad thing. So if I go to my customer table, I'm going to close my book rep table. Notice my book reps, I only have book reps 65, 53, 48, and 42. If I go to my customer table and try to assign an invalid book rep to somebody, 99. It doesn't complain. Oh, there it does. Why is that?
Because we did add
We added that referential integrity, remember? Remember that. And that's something that often people forget on the file, so I'm going to show you that again. I'm going to go to Database Tools, Relationships, and I'm going to pretend I'm doing this for the first time. I'm going to delete that relationship. Oh, it doesn't like me doing it when I have the customer table open. I delete that as though I'm starting from scratch. Remember how to establish that referential integrity. I drag the reference from one table to what the reference number is in the other table, and click here, Enforce Referential Integrity. Remember if that doesn't work, you'll get it could be for a couple of reasons. The most common reason is you made it a number in this table and a short text in the other table. It has to be the same data type for it to work. Another reason it won't work is you already have data with invalid book rep number, and it'll say adding this would break current integrity rules, and I'm not going to do it because your data is already bad. Once you have that, that is establishing a referential integrity. So I thought we'd already done this. I'm not sure why they're having us do that over again. So that's just reminding you how the referential integrity is done. And then explain referential integrity one more time. And a variety of other things you can do to a database, looking at the data, sorting it. The only other thing to do in your database tools is you can compact and repair. If you're working on a big database and it's going slow, compact and repair may solve a lot of problems. But remember, before you do anything like that, you'll want to make sure you have a backup, because sometimes repairing changes things you didn't mean to change. So there we are, done with AC3. And what we'll do on Friday is review quickly through the things you're going to need to know for the final. I'll be concentrating probably more on Excel, since that's not as fresh in your mind as Access.
And we can try that. We have study day.
Yeah, you have study day next week. Oh, a study guide. I thought you said study day. Basically, Friday will be your study guide. be going over the material, generally what you'll need to know. And basically your study guides can be your midterm projects you did and looking through your assignments that you've done here for Access and Excel. So, with all that said, have a great day. See you Friday.
Would it be possible if you could like maybe open up some of those extra credit assignments?
Yeah.
So that way we could get extra credit as well as practice?
Yep.